There's a question that quietly haunts many lives, one that friends whisper about over coffee and therapists hear behind closed doors. Why do intelligent, capable people remain in situations that clearly cause them pain? Why does someone stay with a partner who diminishes them, remain in a friendship that drains them, or continue working for someone who belittles them? The answer isn't weakness. It's far more complex than that, and understanding it reveals something profound about how all human minds actually work. If you've ever wondered about the invisible forces that keep people tethered to what hurts them, or if you've recognized these patterns in your own life, this exploration might offer some clarity. And if this kind of human behavior analysis resonates with you, consider subscribing. There's no pressure, just an invitation to think deeper about why we do what we do. To understand this phenomenon, it's important to first define what we're actually examining. Staying in a relationship that hurts you doesn't necessarily mean dramatic abuse or obvious mistreatment, though it can include that. It refers to any consistent dynamic where one person experiences regular emotional pain, diminishment, or harm, yet chooses to remain. This could be a romantic partnership where affection is weaponized. It could be a workplace where creativity is crushed. It could be a family relationship built on obligation rather than mutual respect, or a friendship where support only flows in one direction. The common thread isn't the type of relationship. It's the pattern of knowing something feels wrong, yet staying anyway. Psychology suggests this isn't about a single decision, but rather a complex web of factors that work together to keep someone in place. These aren't character flaws. They're predictable patterns of human thinking that affect nearly everyone under certain circumstances. One of the most powerful forces at work is something researchers call cognitive dissonance. This is the psychological discomfort people feel when their actions contradict their beliefs about themselves. When someone sees themselves as intelligent and capable, yet finds themselves in a situation that harms them, the mind works overtime to resolve this contradiction. Often, it's easier to change the belief than the behavior. People begin telling themselves stories. Maybe it's not really that bad. Maybe they're being too sensitive. Maybe everyone's relationships look like this behind closed doors. These aren't lies exactly, but rather the mind's attempt to create internal consistency. The person isn't stupid for thinking this way. They're human, and human brains are wired to seek coherence, even if that coherence comes at the cost of truth. Closely related is the sunk cost fallacy, a well-documented pattern in human decision-making. Once someone has invested significant time, emotion, or resources into something, the mind treats that investment as a reason to continue, even when continuation no longer makes sense. A person might think, "I've already given 5 years to this relationship," or "I've already sacrificed so much for this job," and those years or sacrifices feel like they would be wasted if they walked away now. Research indicates this is backwards thinking. Past investment, whether time or emotion, is already spent. It shouldn't determine future choices. But the human mind doesn't work like a calculator. It works like a storyteller, and the story of wasted effort feels unbearable. So people stay, not because the future looks promising, but because the past feels too significant to abandon. Then there's the fear of the unknown, which operates at a deeply primal level. Human beings are pattern-seeking creatures who find comfort in predictability, even when that predictability includes pain. There's a certain psychological safety in knowing exactly what kind of hurt to expect and when. Leaving means stepping into uncertainty. What if they can't find another job? What if they never meet anyone else? What if their family cuts them off completely? What if they discover they're the problem after all? Often observed behavior shows that people will choose familiar suffering over uncertain freedom, not because they lack courage, but because the brain is designed to prioritize known threats over unknown possibilities. The devil you know genuinely feels safer than the devil you don't, even when the devil you know is slowly destroying you. Attachment patterns, formed early in life, also play a significant role. Psychology suggests that the relationships people observe and experience in childhood create templates for what love, connection, and relationship are supposed to feel like. If someone grew up in an environment where affection was inconsistent, where they had to work hard for scraps of approval, or where conflict was the primary form of engagement, those patterns can feel like home in adulthood. It's not that they consciously want dysfunction. It's that dysfunction feels familiar, and the human nervous system often interprets familiarity as safety. Someone might intellectually recognize that a relationship is harmful, yet emotionally feel most comfortable in exactly that type of dynamic. They're not broken. They're responding to deeply ingrained learning about what connection looks like. Perhaps one of the most insidious factors is intermittent reinforcement, a phenomenon well documented in behavioral psychology. When positive experiences come unpredictably, they create stronger emotional bonds than consistent positive experiences. Think about it this way: a relationship where kindness appears randomly, where good days arrive without warning after stretches of tension, creates a psychological trap. The unpredictability itself becomes addictive. Each moment of warmth feels like evidence that things are improving, that the person's patience is finally paying off. Research indicates this pattern is extraordinarily powerful. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling so compelling. The occasional win, the unexpected kindness, the sudden affectionate gesture after weeks of coldness. These moments create hope. And hope, even false hope, can keep someone anchored for years. Beyond individual psychology, social and environmental factors create powerful external pressures. Human beings are social creatures, and the judgment of others carries immense weight, whether we admit it or not. Cultural narratives about commitment, loyalty, and perseverance run deep. People hear messages from childhood onward. Don't be a quitter, relationships take work, family is everything, you made your bed, now lie in it. These aren't necessarily wrong in every context, but they can become weaponized. Someone might stay in a harmful situation partly because leaving feels like admitting failure, like proving they weren't strong enough or committed enough. The fear of being judged by friends, family, or society can be as powerful as any internal factor. Often observed behavior suggests that people will endure significant personal suffering to avoid the social cost of leaving. Economic and practical constraints add another layer of complexity. Not every situation offers a clean exit. Someone might remain in a toxic workplace because they have a mortgage and children to support. They might stay in a harmful romantic relationship because they share custody, or because leaving would mean financial instability. A person might maintain a damaging family relationship because that family member controls an inheritance, or provides childcare, or offers some other practical resource that feels irreplaceable. Psychology doesn't occur in a vacuum. Real-world constraints intersect with emotional patterns, making departure feel not just emotionally difficult but practically impossible. There's also the reality of isolation. Harmful relationships frequently have a way of narrowing someone's world. Sometimes this is intentional manipulation. More often, it's a gradual process. Friends drift away when plans are repeatedly canceled. Family members stop reaching out after being pushed away one too many times. Colleagues keep their distance from workplace drama. Before long, the harmful relationship becomes the person's primary or only source of connection. Even if that connection is painful, it's better than complete isolation. The relationship itself has eliminated the support network that might help someone leave, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. These patterns play out across every type of human relationship, and examining real-world examples helps clarify how they manifest. Consider workplace dynamics. Thousands of people remain in jobs where they're undervalued, overworked, or actively mistreated. From the outside, it might seem simple. Just find another job. But the person living it tells themselves they can't start over at another company. They've already put in 8 years here. They're almost vested in the pension. Their boss isn't always terrible, just on bad days. Maybe if they work harder, prove themselves more, things will improve. They see colleagues leave and seem happy, but convince themselves those people didn't have the same constraints. Meanwhile, their health deteriorates, their confidence erodes, and years pass. This isn't stupidity. It's the predictable result of sunk cost thinking, intermittent reinforcement when the boss occasionally praises them, and fear of the unknown job market. Family dynamics offer another clear example. Adult children often maintain relationships with parents who are critical, controlling, or emotionally harmful. Cultural narratives about honoring family run deep, and the idea of creating distance from a parent can feel like betraying a fundamental social contract. The adult child might tell themselves that their parent means well, that this is just how that generation shows love, that they only have one mother or father. They might remember occasional moments of genuine connection and hold on to those as evidence that the relationship has value. Meanwhile, every interaction leaves them feeling diminished. They approach family gatherings with dread, yet continue attending out of obligation. From a behavioral perspective, this is cognitive dissonance in action, alongside powerful social pressure and attachment patterns formed over decades. Romantic partnerships perhaps demonstrate these patterns most visibly. Someone might stay with a partner who is emotionally distant, serially unfaithful, or quietly cruel. Friends observe and wonder why they don't leave, but those friends aren't feeling the cognitive dissonance of, "I'm a smart person who makes good choices, yet I'm in a bad relationship." They aren't experiencing the intermittent reinforcement of occasional tenderness that feels like proof of love. They haven't invested 5, 10, or 15 years that would feel wasted if they walked away. They aren't facing the terror of dating again at 40 or the practical complexity of dividing a shared life. The person staying isn't blind. They're navigating a complex psychological and practical landscape where every factor points toward remaining, even as their well-being deteriorates. Even friendships, which carry less social weight than family or romantic bonds, can demonstrate these patterns. Someone might maintain a friendship where they're always the listener, never the listened to. They might have a friend who only calls when they need something, who cancels plans but expects availability. Years pass, and when asked why they maintain the relationship, they might say, "We've been friends since college," or "She's going through a lot right now," or "It's not always like this." The sunk cost of shared history, the cognitive dissonance of admitting a friendship is one-sided, and the intermittent reinforcement of occasional good times all contribute to maintaining a dynamic that brings more pain than joy. The cost of staying in these situations extends far beyond the immediate discomfort. Research indicates that prolonged exposure to harmful relationship dynamics affects how people see themselves. Someone who is regularly criticized begins to internalize that criticism. Someone whose needs are consistently dismissed learns to stop having needs, or at least to stop expressing them. The person who remains in a diminishing situation often experiences a gradual erosion of self-trust. They stop believing in their own perceptions, their own worth, their own judgment. This isn't melodrama. It's often observed behavioral change. The confident person becomes hesitant. The outgoing person becomes withdrawn. Identity itself can reshape around the relationship. Health implications are real as well, though this isn't a medical discussion. Psychology and physiology are connected. Chronic stress from ongoing harmful dynamics affects the body. Sleep suffers, energy decreases. People often report feeling older than their years, tired in a way that rest doesn't fix. Again, this isn't medical diagnosis, just observable patterns in how sustained psychological stress manifests physically. There's also opportunity cost, a concept from economics that applies perfectly here. Every day someone spends in a situation that diminishes them is a day they're not spending building something that nurtures them. They're not meeting new people who might treat them well. They're not exploring work that might fulfill them. They're not developing the parts of themselves that the harmful relationship has caused them to suppress. Years can pass this way. Entire chapters of life can be spent managing and surviving one harmful dynamic, while possibilities quietly close. The ripple effects touch other relationships too. Someone exhausted from managing a toxic workplace might have nothing left for their family. Someone diminished by a harmful partnership might withdraw from friendships. The harm from one relationship rarely stays contained. It spreads, affecting overall quality of life in ways that can be difficult to trace back to the source. So how does someone recognize they're in this pattern? There aren't definitive tests, but certain signs suggest closer examination might be valuable. If someone consistently feels worse after interacting with a particular person, that's worth noticing. If they find themselves making constant excuses for someone's behavior to others or to themselves, that's a pattern. If they've changed significant parts of who they are to accommodate someone else, if their world has gotten smaller, if they feel like they're walking on eggshells or can't quite be themselves, these are all potential indicators. Outside perspective can be invaluable here. When multiple trusted people express concern about a relationship, that's worth considering, even if it's uncomfortable. It's important to distinguish between normal relationship challenges and consistent harm. All relationships involve conflict. All require compromise. All include moments of frustration or disappointment. That's not what we're discussing. The pattern that deserves attention is one of consistency, where the harm isn't occasional but regular, where someone isn't dealing with a rough patch but with a sustained dynamic that leaves them diminished. Understanding why people stay in relationships that hurt them doesn't mean condoning those relationships or absolving anyone of responsibility for their choices. It means recognizing that human behavior is complex, that psychological forces are powerful, and that judging someone for staying misses the point entirely. The person staying already knows, on some level, that something is wrong. Shame and judgment don't help. Understanding might. There's no universal answer about what someone in this situation should do. That's not what this exploration offers. But awareness itself is powerful. When someone can name the cognitive dissonance, recognize the sunk cost fallacy, identify the intermittent reinforcement, those patterns lose some of their unconscious power. Understanding doesn't automatically create change, but it creates the possibility of change. It opens a door that might have been invisible before. People are capable of extraordinary transformation when they decide they're ready. Not when others decide for them, but when their own internal calculus shifts. Sometimes that happens suddenly. More often, it's gradual, a slow accumulation of small recognitions until one day the balance tips. If any of this resonates with you, whether in your own experience or in understanding someone you care about, you're not alone. These patterns are profoundly human, which means they're profoundly common. Understanding ourselves, understanding why we do what we do even when it hurts us, is a lifelong process. There's no shame in that. There's just the ongoing work of becoming a little more aware, a little more honest, a little more capable of choosing what serves us rather than what simply feels familiar. If this kind of analysis interests you, I genuinely appreciate your thoughts in the comments. Share your perspective, your questions, or your own observations about human behavior. These conversations matter, and your voice adds to them. And if you found value here, consider subscribing for more explorations into why we think, feel, and act the way we do. No pressure, just an invitation. Until next time, take care of yourself.